Here in front of us today is the iPhone 11, a phone that launched around this time in 2019, and it's one of the older iPhones that support the iOS 18 update. Not the oldest one I believe is the iPhone XR, also the iPhone XS and XS Max, but this is a 5-year-old device, and I'm sure some of you are wondering, how does the latest update handle on a 5-year-old iPhone? So iOS 18 was just released on Monday, September 16th. So if we take a look here, there we go, iOS 18. I'm sure some of you may be wondering, where is the Apple Intelligence features, the new Siri? I believe that's coming in iOS 18.1 in October, because if we take a look here on my iPhone 15 Pro Max, I'm on iOS 18.1. And if we go back and take a quick look here at the settings, there is a section for Apple Intelligence. There we go, right there. Apple Intelligence. I've been using iOS 18 and 18.1 for quite some time on my iPhone 15 Pro Max. And there is a minor bug that I've been having. Now, if you search online and go through some Reddit threads and things like that, the bugs are absolutely wild with iOS 18. Some people are having some really crazy bugs. Luckily, mine is not a major one, and I will demonstrate it to you guys. So, now on iOS 18, if you touch and hold in a blank area on your home screen and you tap Edit in the top left, then click Customize, you can now set your icon theme to dark. So, personally, I don't like it, but there's what it looks like. It changes all of the icons, well, most of them anyway, to the dark theme, but I prefer the light look, right? Just the classic look of iPhone. But if we go into settings here and we scroll down, I really like this change where instead of continuously scrolling to see a long list of apps, they've put everything under apps now. So that is much simpler, and you can also search when you're in here. So if you take a look on the left-hand side of the screen, the app icons, even though my theme is set to the light icon theme, some of the icons, like Bitwarden here, Password Manager, there's Apple Books, the calculator, calendar, Google Chrome, a lot of these are stuck in the dark mode, and I'm not sure why. It just doesn't seem very cohesive. And if we take a look here on my iPhone 15 Pro Max, we go to Settings, we go down to Apps, you can see the same thing. A lot of these icons are just stuck in a dark mode. There's American Express, there's the App Store, Books, Bitwarden, right? It just doesn't look very good. And the other issue I'm having is if I swipe down for the Spotlight search, even though my icon theme here is set to light, look at these icons in my Spotlight search. They're all like in dark mode. So that's pretty annoying, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a pretty minor bug, I would say. But going back here to the iPhone 11 and talking about how it performs in 2024 with the latest iOS update, I think it's important to have your expectations in line, because this is a 5-year-old device, and in the smartphone world, that's a very long time. So it's not super buttery smooth. You know, this is a 60 hertz panel. It's not going to be nearly as smooth as the ProMotion, the 120 hertz panels. And you may experience some little hiccups here and there, but I think as long as your expectations are in check, I think you are still going to be happy with an iPhone 11 in 2024. Now, I'm not sure if I can recommend going out and buying one used. Maybe, you know, depending on the price. This should get maybe one more update depending on how Apple feels about that. They only guarantee 5. I say only, but 5 years is a long time. So Apple's track record is very good with providing updates. Not that they're all good, right? Because smartphones and technology, they have bugs. So it's not that all of the updates have been good, but they do have a good track record with at least providing the updates. So that's definitely good to see here on the iPhone 11. Now, this will not get the Apple Intelligence features, unfortunately. Only the 15 Pro and Pro Max and all of the new iPhone 16 series will get the Apple Intelligence features. And I think the thing people are most excited about is the new Siri. So let's take a brief look at that on my iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now, personally, I don't use assistants too often. I want you guys to let me know down in the comments, what do you use your assistant for? If you're on Android, you have Google Assistant or Gemini, or for the select few of you that might use Bixby, or, Siri here on the iPhone. What do you use your assistant for most of the time? So if we say, let me make sure, got that turned off. I've got that turned up, my ringer. Hey Siri, what's the weather in New York City? So for some reason, or maybe I'm doing this wrong. Maybe I have to turn off Do Not Disturb. Hey Siri, what's the weather in New York City? So you notice she's not announcing it, but if we put the phone to sleep and we say, hey Siri, what's the weather in New York City?
It's currently cloudy and 73 degrees in New York, New York. Expect rain starting in the evening. Today's high will be 76 and the low will be 66 degrees.
So there we go, a much more natural sounding voice, whereas if we do the same thing here on the iPhone 11, hey Siri, what's the weather in New York City?
It's currently cloudy and 73 degrees in New York, New York. Expect rain starting in the evening. Today's high will be 76 and the low will be 66 degrees.
So as you can tell, and I'm sorry about the speaker on this iPhone 11 here, the speakers are busted. Hopefully you guys were able to still tell that the new Siri just sounds much more natural. And so I think that's the thing most people are excited for. And so it seems to me, I could be wrong on this, but I wanted to show you guys, if we say, let's try this again. Let me turn this phone over so it doesn't trigger Siri. Hey Siri, what's the weather in New York City? So there we go. It's just kind of simple. And I like that it doesn't really take the focus away from your phone, although I kind of wish it did. I kind of wish this was blurred so the focus was on what you're asking Siri. But you can't get it to do the glowy thing. The Apple event was it's glow time, unless you press and hold the side button like this. What's the weather in New York City? So there we go. That's how you get it to do the glow. And then if we put the phone to sleep, what's the weather in New York City?
It's currently cloudy and 73 degrees in New York, New York. Expect rain starting in the evening.
So there we go. That's how you get it to do the glow. So, with Android phones for a few years now, and now with the iPhone, everything is on this whole AI movement, and I'm just not sure it's something we really need, unless it gets better. I mean, you have to start somewhere with new technologies like this, but as of right now, it just doesn't seem very useful. You guys can let me know what features you find the most useful. So other than the minor bug I showed you guys with the app icons, I haven't had any major bugs. Now, of course, that will be different between every device, so there is a bit of a risk. If you do download iOS 18 on an older iPhone, you could have a very different experience, so do keep that in mind. You may have way more bugs. You may use different apps than what I use, right? There's all these little differences in how each of us use our devices, so just keep that in mind. Now, as far as which iPhones you should upgrade from, I would say if you have any of the 12 models, even the Pro model, it's worth upgrading to the iPhone 16, even the base model, because none of the Pro model iPhone 12s had the 120 hertz displays. So if you go to a base model iPhone 16, or maybe you want the Plus, I think you will be more than happy. I think it's worth the upgrade from that. Even if you have the base model iPhone 13, I would say upgrade to any of the iPhone 16s and you will be happy. I think that's worth the upgrade as well. If you have an iPhone 14 and you feel intrigued by the action button or the capture button that they've added, I would say it's worth upgrading to. And I would say the same thing for the 13 Pro series and 14 Pro series. If you feel really interested and intrigued by the new buttons, definitely upgrade. But on the 13 Pro or 14 Pro, make sure you go to a 16 Pro or Pro Max, right? Because you want to keep that 120 hertz ProMotion display. To talk a little bit about the new capture button, it seems to me like Apple is just adding things to give it a slight leg up over the previous year iPhone. Did the iPhone really need a capture button? Because people have been taking pictures and videos by tapping on the display for as long as I can remember, right? Or if you had an iPhone 15 Pro, you could set it up to where if you pressed the action button, you could take a photo. So if we go here, we're going to go in and set the action button to open the camera. Right there we go. Nope, that's not it. There we go. So if you press and hold, it's going to open the camera, and if you press it, you can take a picture. And I believe if for video, you can tap it and then tap it again, right? So the action button still has plenty of functionality in the camera app. It's just the capture button has more functionality. But I'm still kind of on the side of like, did the iPhone really need a new button? I do think it is pretty cool, and I think people overall will really like it. It's kind of one of those things it's like you didn't really know you needed it until you got it kind of thing. But it's like starting with Dynamic Island on the iPhone 14 Pro series, and then the action button on the 15 Pro. The Dynamic Island still feels like a bit of a gimmick to me, but I do like the action button because it has more functionality than the silent switch. But overall, I am glad that Apple is trying to do new things and keep the iPhone feeling somewhat fresh. But I think it's funny when they put so much emphasis behind these features like it's super groundbreaking, you know, like so much emphasis behind the action button when the iPhone 15 Pro come out. And I do think, you know, of course, Apple or any company is going to overhype a feature on a product they're about to launch. But the action button is pretty cool. I'm not sure the capture button is going to be equally as cool. This year is definitely an S upgrade year for the iPhone 16 series if you compare it to the iPhone 15 series. You know, the bezels were shrunk on the iPhone 16 Pro series, so now the 16 Pro is 6.3 inches and the Pro Max is 6.9, which is crazy. And I believe for the most part the cameras are almost identical on the 16 Pro series, and now they have the A18 Pro chip, which is just a little bit better than the A17 Pro. But the iPhone 16 base model does kind of remind me of the iPhone 11 here with the vertical cameras. So I like that they've kind of went back to that. You know, they say it's for the spatial video, but it does kind of, when I first saw it, it reminded me of the iPhone 11 and even the XR. But yeah, I really like the design of the new iPhones. It kind of sticks with that flat-sided kind of boxy design that Apple has been doing since, I believe, like the iPhone 12. So I'm a big fan of it. Next year, apparently, they're going to do a complete redesign. Maybe they'll go back to the curved edges, which I'm not against. I do like the flat edges more because it feels just more like a brick to me. Like it feels like when I'm gripping this phone here, it just wants to like slide out of my hands. So I prefer the flat sides. But yeah, I'm glad this year Apple has went back to where the Pro model and non-Pro models, there's not a lot of features that separate them. You know, the base model iPhones have the A18, they have the action button, they have Dynamic Island, they have the capture button. So I'm glad to see Apple is kind of back on this track. It reminds me a bit of the iPhone 13 series, where there wasn't a whole lot that separated the Pro from the non-Pro. So it kind of makes it feel like you're getting really close to the Pro model iPhones without having to spend that extra money. Yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on the new iPhone 16 models and iOS 18. I'm going to hold on to my 15 Pro Max probably until next year. And I wanted to talk a little bit about iOS 18 on a 5-year-old iPhone. As long as you keep your expectations in order, and depending on how long you've had your iPhone 11, your battery health may be, degraded. Apple does have a pretty good repair service. Let me know which iPhone you have and how iOS 18 has been treating you. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next video.